Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. In today's video we are talking about Echeveria Agavoides Christmas. Now this is basically a cultivar of Echeveria. So there is a complete series of succulents that are under the cultivar varieties like Agavoides Romeo, Agavoides Romeo Rubin. We have Christmas, Lipstick, Ebony. So there are a couple of succulents that are cultivars. These are the series of cultivars called as the Agavoides. However, we do have natural Agavoides as well. I'll put the name on the screen, and those are the regular or the natural varieties of Agavoides. Now the reason why I am adding this into medium is though it is an easy to grow succulent, but it will be slightly difficult for a lot of beginners, especially for people who are from a very humid and a warm environment. Now when I'm talking about warm, there are certain cities wherein the temperatures rise above 40 degrees Celsius, and then this plant will have issues. So the reason why I'm adding it into the medium is you need to have experience, and the rest everything depends upon the environment. A lot of people with experience also have a difficulty in growing. The reason is environment. Because they do not prefer a very warm environment. They do not prefer a lot of humidity. Now when we have a case wherein the environment is very warm, the next thing what we tend to do is we move it to a different location. Ideally that location does not receive a lot of light. Now if you're going to move an Agavoides variety in a place where it does not receive a good amount of light, there is a high chance that the Agavoides will rot. Now this has happened to me. That's why I'm sharing with you guys. I had no clue about this earlier. I lost a couple of my Agavoides because I had shifted them to partial shade, even though there was a good amount of light around, but still they didn't make it. Without even watering, they had crown rot, and it took me a while to understand what exactly is the case. So they do not like to be kept in shade or partial shade. They require a good amount of either direct sunlight for longer hours, or you can keep them in indirect bright light. But again, the light in indirect bright light also has to be really bright and for longer hours. So what overall I can say is for this variety, that is all the Agavoides variety, light is the most important part. Soil and watering comes secondary. But again, that does not mean that the soil has to be like just random any soil. It has to be the loose, porous and well draining soil. But the most important part for Agavoides is the light, especially direct morning sunlight is what they prefer. I have moved all of my Agavoides, which I have for almost 3 to 4 years, or probably some are even older than that, and they all receive even afternoon sunlight. But because they have been with me for a long time, they have been acclimated. Hence, I also tend to keep them in afternoon direct sunlight as well. But guys, if you are just a beginner, if you're just bought in the succulents, do not put them out in direct afternoon sunlight. Your succulents will get burnt. You need to acclimate them for a couple of years before putting them out in direct afternoon sunlight. So I would say, please do not keep them in direct afternoon sunlight. Only give them morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours after acclimating them. Bugs are very rare scenario in this unless there are blooms. As you can see, I have cut off a couple of blooms. There were a couple of blooms on this. I have given them a chop because they tend to attract a lot of aphids. Recently I cut this one little guy over here. It was covered in aphids. So the blooms are the issues in a lot of succulents. They kind of attract a lot of aphids. So I prefer to give it a trim. So again, coming back to environment, they prefer a cool, dry environment. Probably during the afternoons, if the temperatures are like around 35 to 36 degrees Celsius for a couple of hours, that's not an issue. But overall, they prefer a very dry environment. So people from coastal areas or where in the humidity is really high, you might have issues growing this variety. Because I personally have been talking to a lot of people who belong to the environment that is very humid, and they have had a really hard time with Agavoides. I have seen them struggle with Agavoides. They wanted to give a try, and then later on in last summer, they really had a tough time running around with the pot of Agavoides. And unfortunately, a lot of the Agavoides did perish because of the warm environment and the amount of humidity. A lot of the Agavoides varieties were lost because they were not able to handle it because of high temperatures and a high amount of humidity. Even after putting the green shade cloth, they still were rotting because the environment was not supporting that succulent. And you can also see my Christmas is very compact because I usually do not water it a lot. I try to keep it slightly underwatered but not too much. You can see they are completely closed, which indicates that they are getting stressed. But now, as the summers are kicking in, I will start watering a little bit more because the soil tends to get dried very fast. As you can see, my soil is very loose, it's very porous, well draining. This is the type of soil that you want to add for your Agavoides because they are very finicky when it comes to soil as well. Do not keep the soil very compact. Dormancy is winter dormant because even though they are cultivars of Echeverias, they belong to the Echeveria variety, so they tend to go dormant during the winters, and summer is their growing period. So very soon you will not be able to see much of the reds on this. It will start turning green because it's going to get into its growing period. A lot of people do get worried when the succulent starts losing color. Always remember guys, the colors will not permanently stay on the succulent unless you are stressing them throughout the year. During the growing period, the colors tend to fade off and the succulent starts turning green because it's getting into its growing period, which is absolutely normal. You should let the succulent grow because a lot of people say that my succulents are not growing very well because a lot of you guys are stressing your succulents during the growing period. Definitely when a succulent is stressed, it will not grow during its growing period. So leave the growing period alone, let the succulent grow. You can always stress your succulents during the dormant period. Now, talking about propagation, I would advise you, if you do not do any kind of beheading, it's much better. There are people who tend to do beheading. If you are not very experienced with beheading of Agavoides, I would suggest don't do it because a lot of varieties, now this variety tends to propagate easily via leaf. So you can do a leaf propagation. You can even separate the offsets. But when it comes to beheading, I would say just skip that part because a lot of varieties like Romeo Rubin are very delicate. A lot of times they might not react positively towards beheading. So do not get into that unnecessary problems. You might happen to lose your succulent. I do not do any beheadings for these. Stems are very difficult to locate because these are Echeverias. They tend to have a very compact rosette, so the stems are very difficult to find. The most what I can suggest is do a leaf propagation or separate the offsets when they reach a decent size. Luckily this time I had a good amount of luck with leaf propagation. Now these leaves were taken out while repotting. I did not take them out just for the purpose of leaf propagation. I had just taken them out while I was repotting, so these leaves were right out, and you can see there are very tiny pups. There are no roots. So these were some of the leaves that now I did not have any intention to propagate them via leaves because, as I said, Agavoides are a little difficult. Usually the best time is to propagate them during the summers, but these were taken off while repotting. Now to give you a approximate time frame, this growth is like a month and a half. So you can see how small and tiny they are. Now guys, whatever information I tend to give you, it's all 100% real. I wouldn't say that this is growing like real quick with me, like this has just been 2 days and you can see that the growth is increasing, because I do see a lot of videos of a lot of people wherein they state that they have started doing leaf propagation and within a couple of weeks they have a mother plant. That is highly impossible. 7 years of growing succulents, it depends from your environment. Yes, there would be slight faster growth on certain varieties of succulents, but not all varieties. For a succulent from this size to reach to a mother plant, it is impossible for it to reach into a mother plant in couple of months. It's going to take a lot of time. So I just wanted to share, because a lot of people do panic thinking that their leaves are not getting propagated or their pups are not growing very fast. Now guys, that is not your fault. It completely depends upon your environment and the type of variety you are propagating. Some varieties can take around 3 to 4 months to produce pups. there is nothing that you can do from your end. It all depends upon the variety of succulent, your environment, your climate. So in other words, there is nothing much you can do when it comes to propagating leaves or getting the pups out. This is all depends on the mother leaf. There is nothing much we can do apart from just waiting. Once when the roots are produced, you can go ahead and water, but it is not something that is going to work out really well. If you are not prepared for leaf propagation, I would advise do not do leaf propagation, because I see a lot of people are very worried that their pups are not growing fast. Now guys, pups will not grow that fast. I have been talking about this on and off. It is going to take a couple of months. In fact, it will take almost a year and a half for the pups to even reach a decent size. So don't go according to what you are seeing on Instagram or what you're seeing on Facebook or on other videos wherein people are just plucking out the leaves from the succulent and the pups are growing within a couple of weeks. That is completely false. You can see how my pups tend to grow. They are very slow. It is not something that is going to happen overnight. This is something that I have been talking over the years. It's been almost 2 years of making this video, of making these videos on this channel. My channel has almost completed 2 years, and I have been speaking about this from almost 2 years, that the leaves will grow at their own pace. There is nothing much you can do. Adding of fertilizers, adding of plant boosters, whatever is not going to work out. It all depends upon the variety, your environment. It all depends upon that. There is nothing much you can do from your side apart from waiting. The more you're going to fidget with the leaf propagations, the more you're going to call into trouble. And I have seen people adding tons and tons of nutrients and fertilizers to make their pups grow faster. And this way you tend to harm the pups. Remember, the pup roots are very delicate. They are very small. They will immediately get burnt with high amount of nutrients in the soil. The nutrients in the soil, the fertilizers in the soil will heat up and they will burn the succulent roots. So all you have to do is just wait, just have patience, and that's all. The pups are going to take their own good time to grow. It's not going to happen overnight, or it's not going to happen in a couple of months. It's going to take a long period of time. So guys, this is all about this variety. Leaf propagation is possible. The pup separation is possible, but do not do any kind of beheading, which can be very risky, especially if you do not have a lot of experience. I'm not saying that beheading is wrong, but it can be quite tricky or risky, especially if you are a beginner. So give it a good amount of light. Keep the soil loose, porous and well draining. Do your watering whenever your soil is completely bone dry. You can go ahead and water. Even if your soil is completely bone dry, I would say wait for another 2 or 3 days. Don't water immediately. Keep your watering a little low for Agavoides, and as and when. Now you can see my succulent is quite compact, which means that it requires watering. But when the leaves tend to open up completely, that indicates that the succulent has absorbed a lot of water, and then you have to slow down on your watering. Usually you will find your Agavoides, most of the sellers will have their Agavoides are very compact. That's because they prefer to keep it underwatered rather than overwatered, because an overwatered succulent can get rotted easily. So the moment you start noticing that the leaves are opening up, you tend to see that it is starting to opening up completely. It indicates that you need to slow down on your watering. The leaves are getting filled with water. So guys, that's about it. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep propagating.